Then the other woman arrived. She came from the direction of the town, walking with the ease of someone who did not have to think about where she was going, because she had been going there for years. She was not extraordinary. The siren registered this with something that felt like relief and immediately distrusted. What the other woman was simply already there. The siren watched her cross the dock and come to stand beside the prince, close enough that their shoulders were level, and saw the specific thing she had no category for either. The gap between them was not a gap. It was the kind of spatial arrangement that only develops between people who have stopped negotiating proximity, because proximity has become a given. The other woman did not reach for him. She did not need to. The space they occupied together had a shape that existed before she arrived, and she simply returned to it, the way a tide returns to its mark on the rocks, not claiming, not seeking, just coming back to what was already hers.
The siren was experienced enough with systems to know the difference between a position that was contested and one that was settled. This one was settled. She filed this too in the same imprecise category as the conversation about the eastern grounds, and turned back to the harbor ledger board and the names she had come here to collect. 3 weeks into her time at the harbor, she followed the license administrator to the dock. She had everything she needed. She had studied his route for 2 weeks. She knew the hour, the path, the point where the dock was dark enough and far enough from the tavern that what happened there would not carry. She was standing 20 feet behind him, in position, ready to close the distance. Then, she saw the prince at the water's edge.
He was in the same spot, the same posture, the same quality of someone conducting a private argument with something that cannot answer back. He was not looking at her. He did not know she was there. He was simply present, the way an unresolved question is present, occupying space in a mind without asking permission. The license administrator turned a corner and was gone. She was still moving when he disappeared. The weight had already shifted forward. The lean she had held for the last 20 feet, closing distance in fractions. The body already committed to a sequence that was not going to happen. She registered this before she registered the empty corner. The prepared hands, the readiness, the specific arrangement of a body that had organized itself for the next 3 seconds. The body had made a calculation it had not shared with her, and the calculation was already complete, and the space where he had been was simply space.
The siren stood still. Under her feet, the dock was wet from the evening tide, the planks cold through the thin soles of the surface shoes she had bought in the harbor market. She could hear the administrator's footsteps for a few seconds after he disappeared, receding, unaware, ordinary footsteps going home to an ordinary night. Then those too were gone, absorbed into the harbor's ambient noise. She did not move. She was not afraid. She was not uncertain about the work or her ability to complete it. She knew with the same precision she had brought to every other observation she had made in this harbor exactly what had just happened. She had been ready, and she had not moved. And the reason had nothing to do with the work. She was not going to name that reason. But she knew what it was. She walked back to her room. She did not allow herself to look at the prince as she passed him. Her sister surfaced at the edge of the harbor rocks 4 nights later, long after the last boats had gone quiet. She did not come ashore. She stayed at the waterline, visible long enough to receive the report, gone before anyone could see her. That was the arrangement. "How many names?" her sister said. "4 confirmed, 2 with enough information to act on. The main target. I am close. He requires more access. The approach is not direct." Her sister looked at her for a moment without speaking. They had learned the same waters, and the siren was aware, as she gave this answer, that it was technically true. She was close. The approach was not direct. Nothing she had said was false. She had said nothing about the dock. Nothing about the license administrator who had walked home safely 3 nights earlier. Nothing about why she had let him go. These were omissions, not lies. She understood the distinction, and she also understood that her sister, standing at the waterline in the dark, would not have made that distinction the same way she was making it now. Her sister accepted the answer. The witch expects progress. There will be progress. Her sister slipped back under the surface without ceremony. The siren watched the water close over her and felt, briefly and without allowing herself to dwell on it, the specific coldness of having just lied, in every way that mattered, to the only person in either world who had been sent to watch over her.
That night, she did not open the harbor ledger. She had been copying it by hand for 3 weeks. The names, the numbers, the quota structure she had been mapping. She sat by the window instead, looking at the strip of harbor visible between the buildings. The lamp on the table behind her needed oil. It had been burning lower for an hour, and she had not moved to refill it. The harbor ledger was open on the table to the same page it had been yesterday. She had not turned it. The mandate had not changed. She knew what the harbor master's son represented in the account that needed to be settled. She knew what his heart was for, what mechanism it would complete, what would happen to the harbor once that mechanism ran. None of that had changed. The account was real. The debt was real. The boats that arrived before the light every morning were still arriving. But she had begun, without deciding to notice things about him that had no place in the account. The old dockworker's report, received and carried without defense. The way the burden of knowing something and being unable to change it had a specific posture, and she had been watching that posture on the pier for 3 weeks and had not allowed herself to name what it resembled until now. The way he stood at the water, the way she had once stood in the dark 2 miles below it, looking at something that owed you nothing and not looking away. She told herself she was being thorough. She noticed everything. These were data. They lived in the same place as everything else. She had 43 observations on the harbor master's son. She had 11 on the license administrator. The lamp guttered. She got up, finally, and added the oil. In the window, the harbor was the same dark and the same lights it had been for 3 weeks. She had been telling herself the same things for approximately the same amount of time, with approximately the same level of precision, and the telling was becoming a different kind of work than the rest of the work. She knew this. She sat back down. She did not open the ledger. That was the night the story shifted. She did not understand that yet, but the lamp was full again, and the harbor was the same, and the ledger was still on the same page. And that was the night.